My goal today is to just change your perspective of what this action is all about when you are having a conversation with someone about your company. Look familiar? Seriously, how often do you really have conversations in an elevator with somebody you don't know? How often is it likely that that person you really want to talk to is going to be in an elevator? And when you are, what are they thinking about? I don't know about you, but I'm at the hotel, I'm at the office building, I get in an elevator, and the only thing I'm thinking about is getting to that meeting that I'm late for, or getting back up to my hotel room to get on that conference call or check emails in between sessions, yada, 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 right? So, not the best environment, right? Okay, best way to fast forward this here? Because it doesn't want to work. Let's try this one. There we go. All right. So we have the elevator, and then we have pitch. Does anybody know, have you ever looked up the definition of a pitch? George?
Depends where you hold your fingers on.
Right. Yeah. But the objective of a pitch is to toss or fling an object into a fixed position, a fixed point. What's the object of the pitcher in baseball? What's his goal with everybody standing in front of him with a bat? To strike out. Is that what you want to do?
No.
Spencer, you want to strike out?
No.
I don't want you to. All right, so elevators aren't great. We don't want to pitch. I mean, and honestly, how comfortable does that look? All right? When you think about the mechanics of a pitch, it's a strain. It's uncomfortable. So when I was thinking about this a couple of years ago, I was thinking, what's a better analogy? And there's probably still yet a better one that maybe you can help me come up with. But I thought, what's the objective when I'm having this interchange with another person, whether it is an investor, whether it's just a friend, whether it's just somebody I meet anywhere, a potential customer. What do I want to elicit? A response, passion, understanding. I want to give them something, and I want them to give me something back. Ask for something so I can give them something else, and I want this continuous circle. So the image I came up with, for lack of something better until you help me come up with something better, is a boomerang. What happens when you toss a boomerang? It comes back.
If you throw it right.
If you throw it right. Very, very important. And with a boomerang, it's not only in how you throw it, it's understanding the environment in which you are throwing it. Everything from wind to dust to... So lots to consider there. So we're going to call this the boomerang. And if you have some better ideas, let me know. But I am not going to call it the elevator pitch. Because again, you can continue to call it that, but I want you to think differently about it. That is the only reason I'm here today, is to try to help you think differently. Because Spencer, when you got up at 1 Million Cups to present the other day, how did you feel inside?
Excited.
Excited? Any nervousness? Any pressure?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I know a lot of my entrepreneurs, and for those of you that don't know, I manage the UCF Business Incubator in the Central Florida Research Park. I have about 51 startup technology companies that live with me right now. And if I put them on the spot and ask them to tell someone about themselves, I see them go like this. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But when I have a dialogue with somebody, when you have a dialogue with somebody, there's only a few things that I want to convey to get them to respond to me. I want to tell them what, I want to tell them why, and I want to tell them who. When I talk about the incubator, I say, I help entrepreneurs get their companies up and running and survive, because most don't survive. That's really it. And then I want somebody to say, what do you do? How do you do that? I want them to ask questions. I want them to want to know more. So it's what, why, and who. Very simply, leave some mystery. You know, it's like when you're dating. This is kind of like dating. You leave a little yet to be discovered, right? All right, you want that person to keep coming back, to want another date, to want to find out more, right? Okay, this is like dating. So we talked about how, and thankfully your name?
David.
David. So as David was quick to point out, for a boomerang to come back to you, you have to throw it correctly. To have a dialogue with someone, to have a boomerang with someone that will engage them and get them to respond in a way that will allow you to continue to engage with them, has a lot of the same elements of it. Know the context. Who is this person? Where are you? What kind of environment are you in? If you're having one of these conversations sitting next to someone at a conference, as opposed to sitting next to someone on riding Sunrail, which I'm sure most of you have, right? Right? Downtown, yeah. It might be a different conversation because you got different dynamics going on. You need to be aware. What's their body language? What's their eye contact with you? How do you find out who they are? Don't just immediately start deluging them with all kinds of information about who you are. Find out who they are. Ask a question. Start a dialogue. What do we all like to talk about more than anything? Yeah. You know, I have this reputation around town, so people tell me that Carolyn knows everybody. Everybody knows Carolyn. And I'll have people sometimes say, oh, I met so-and-so, and they said they're a really good friend of yours. And I'll think, who the heck is so-and-so? I don't know that name. And what I realized is that I have this habit of asking questions. I'm a curious person. I can have an exchange with somebody for 30 minutes, and they will leave hardly knowing anything about me. But they will feel like they're the most important person on the planet. And I'll know all kinds of things about them. But it gives me the power and it gives me the control in the conversation, because I'm able to tell them what I want them to know, what I feel like it's of value to me for them to know, what I feel like would be beneficial for them to know, and to ask them questions as well. Now, if they ask me questions, I'm going to answer, obviously. But if you don't practice that technique, when you're networking, when you're having a conversation with somebody anywhere, try it. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised at how you're able to guide the conversation in the direction you want it to go. You'll also be amazed at what you find out that you wouldn't find out otherwise. And have a hook. Did the title of this presentation hook you? And why? Why did it hook you?
Got to the point.
Got to the point.
Question something you take as a
Question something that you just kind of take for granted. Yes, Dave?
It sounded different than the usual.
Sounded different than the usual. Make you a little curious?
My curiosity up.
Made it curiosity. That's what that's about. Just like I said when somebody asked me what I do, I say I help entrepreneurs. I help them get their companies up and running and stay alive. And that could mean lots of things, but survival. What does it mean? And increase the heart rate. What motivates all of us as human beings to take action? Emotion. We may not think so, You guys are sometimes especially quick to deny that I'm not an emotional driven creature. Well, got news for you. So, we all are driven by emotions, and those emotions are affected by what we think. And all of our actions come from all of that. So you want to create some emotion. It may just be a little bit, but watch and pay attention to yourself when you're having a conversation with somebody, or you're watching a movie, or you're reading a news story, you're reading something, and you feel yourself getting excited about it. Check your pulse. You'll be a little surprised. And short and sharp. Again, it's all about getting them to send something back to you. Anybody know what today's average attention span is of an adult?
Like 20 seconds.
It's actually 8.
That's amazing.
Actually 8. So,
Now, is that less or more than a child, though, please?
you know, David, it depends, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What does it do to our attention span when somebody hooks us and gets our heart rate up? It doubles it. It keeps it going. Our whole body language changes. Our whole mental, neurological functioning changes. We are focusing. That's what you're trying to accomplish. And speaking the right language, when you talk to a child, do you use the same language that you use if you're talking to one of your colleagues here at Starter Studio? When you talk to your grandparents, do you use the same language? When you talk to somebody who's a banker, do you use the same language that you would use if you were describing to your neighbor what you do? Odds are no. So why do we memorize this story and just repeat it over and over in the same way to everybody we meet? And I'm not saying you do, but it is kind of typical out there. It's easy to get trapped into that. So pay attention to how you talk, the language that you use based on who you're talking to, and what you want from them as well. And then next to talking about ourselves, which we all respond to very quickly, I think the second thing that most people respond to very readily is feeling needed. Please don't ever leave a conversation at a networking event or anywhere you go without asking for help. And I have to believe you're entrepreneurs. I have to believe you need a lot of things. I mean, maybe it's that person in a company. Maybe it's a contact at a company. Maybe it's a certain talent. Maybe it's information. Maybe it's I'm looking for statistics on what did I have a conversation about yesterday? Looking for statistics on the gender differences of all the pharmaceutical studies on malaria treatment. That was a request I got yesterday, because not many people track that data. So, yeah. Believe me, it's not Wikipedia, but the European Union tracks it. I did find that out. So, and the person you're talking to may not be the one that can help you, but how do you feel when somebody asks you for help? And if you can't help them, what do you do?
Try to figure out who can help them.
Try to figure out who can help them. That's just kind of our natural human tendency, is it? That's the way we're wired, to help. So use that. All right. This is something that you do need to put a little thought into, obviously. I'm not suggesting that you just always go into one of these conversations and just wing it. You need to know what it is. What's that hook? What's your difference? What is it that you need? what is the information you should, what is the what, who, and why? Know those things. Practice them so that they're just second nature to include in a conversation. You ever watch somebody give a presentation, or you've been having a conversation with somebody and you feel like they're mentally reading off a piece of paper that they wrote down everything so that they could remember it word for word to be able to repeat to you, and there's absolutely no passion in their voice? Yeah. Or sometimes when some people do that, and I have to watch that, I've noticed I do this, because I've watched videos of myself. If I'm mentally recalling something, my eyes wander off over here, like I'm reading from a teleprompter. So that's one reason we need to practice, to have it down so it's just a part of what we talk about. And this last point actually came from a conversation I was having with an entrepreneur one day. And I kept trying to, he came to inquire about applying to the incubator. And I kept trying to get out of him, what are you about? What do you do? Why does it matter? Who would care? An hour later, he could not tell me. I said, I don't think you have a story here. You need to go back and rethink what you're doing. And he actually did. And he came back 6 months later and he had a story. Okay, the Starter Studio CEOs. I don't want to pick on Jeremy exclusively. Where'd he go? Raise your hand if you're a Starter Studio. All right. This is where you get to help. You get to participate. Each of these methods of telling your story, I want one of you to jump in and give us an example of this. The one word. If somebody asks me, what do you do? What are you all about? I say survival. What? Are you a lifeguard? Sorta, sometimes. But what would be your one word? Somebody. Impact. Educate. Entertain. Anybody else? Connections. So think about that one word that summarizes the core of what you're all about. Because once you've got that one word, that stake in the ground, it's so easy to build a dialogue around that, an exchange around that. Sometimes asking a question, because if I get asked a question, I have to start using my brain. I mean, I can listen to anybody kind of tune out, right? But if I get asked a question, I know somebody's expecting an answer, and so I got to think about this and try to answer the question, right? So how would you how would you start a dialogue about what you do using a question? Anybody? Pardon?
How do you engage your customers online?
How do you engage your customers online? Perfect. Spencer?
It would be how do I get to my principals? Superintendents.
How do I get to my principals? How do I help my kids
How do I do
effectively learn
Yes.
using technology?
Yeah.
Okay? Again, think about that question that captures the essence of what you're all about. A rhyme. I thought this was kind of fun when I came across this. And I haven't come up with any really good examples, but I think you could have fun with this. Anybody got a good kind of poetic brain? Come up with a rhyme for you? I know. It's fun to think about, though.
Yeah.
it really makes you start to think about, just kind of in a fun sort of way, how to describe your company. I had one that I'd come up with this morning for Trubo, but I can't remember it now. So it was something that rhymed with STEM. So you could have a lot of fun with this one. So yeah. All right, the subject line. I don't know about y'all, but how do you decide which emails to open other than who it's from? If I don't know the sender, what am I going to look at? What do you look at? All right, so give me some subject lines that are going to get me to open an email that has your story in it.
Always put their name in the subject line.
Always put their name in the subject line. Okay, using their name.
Put a challenge.
Do
Do you want to save $1 million?
you want to save $1 million? That could sound a little like spam.
The subject line almost has to be a boomerang.
Almost has to be a boomerang, exactly.
It has to be.
Yep.
Yeah. Call to action.
A call to action, because you want them to open it, and you want them to at least spend at least 8 seconds reading it. So that means when you structure that message, whatever you can see in the window of that monitor, that better grab them. That better be that hook. Maybe you're different from me, but if it doesn't get me there, I'm not scrolling down. Pixar. I've used the word story a lot intentionally because there is nothing more powerful than a good story. Why don't we go to the movies? Why don't we read books? Why don't we watch TV? Because we want story. And if the storyline's not good, if it's not entertaining, if it doesn't grab our attention and get our heartbeat, if you're not yelling at that TV or laughing so hard your sides hurt or crying or whatever, you're not going to continue watching it, right? So what's Pixar? What are they? They are masters at storytelling, and every good story has the same composition. Once upon a time, and then, but then, and finally, right? Right, he always gets the girl. Yeah. Men always want to fight a battle. They want a woman to rescue, and we always want to be rescued and be part of that adventure. So, yeah, a little dating advice there if you don't know it. So, and then a tweet, 120 characters. Oh, can you tell your story in a tweet? I confess, I'm not a tweeter, whatever. So, come here. Jeremy, you've been too quiet back there. You know I got to put you on the spot. What would you tweet? Yeah.
Innovative STEM toy seeks passionate people for STEM first, science, technology.
Innovative STEM toy seeks a playmate. Yeah, that could be misinterpreted. Maybe not. That's out of Pixar's book. That's a Pixar story. Yeah.
Be here for the interview process.
Yeah. Innovative STEM toy seeks curious children, right? Yeah. So,
Parents' permission.
with parents' permission. Seeks curious parents, right? So, anyway. Again, think, what did we just do? We used words that in and of themselves mean nothing, but it's all about the context we give them. So think about the words you use. Think about how someone else might interpret them. It might not be the way you want them to, all right? I mean, we use playmates all the time to talk about our children, but in today's society, putting out there on Twitter, no, this is not the bunny. So just some fun ways for you to think about how you tell your story, how you toss that boomerang out there and get it to come back to you so you can toss it again. Thoughts, questions? Let's see. And then I just put each of the companies that are up here because I thought, Let's see, who have I not called on? Who's not participated here, huh? So, I love outhouse games. That's good. That's a hook. That like so makes me want to go, huh? What's this? And growing up in the rural South, I know what an outhouse is. So not that we had one, but I know what one is. So Trubo, I know. Flight fishing. Who's flight fishing? Okay. Flexible travel, it'll be a text. So how would you, you've been kind of quiet.
All these people are here?
Yep. They're the Starter Studio clients.
What's the
Florida
Florida BlogCon?
BlogCon? Okay. She connects. She's a connector. That's what she does.
That was her word.
That was her word. Yeah. So how will you tell your story? How will you do it differently when you walk up the street to Starbucks today?
I like to start by telling people that I've been able to do a lot of travel internationally for extremely low prices, like $280 to Milan or $485 to Tokyo. And so that's a great catch. People tend to ask me how I find those deals. And I tell them it's been really difficult. But there's lots of places you have to watch. You have to be flexible.
Yeah.
And then I decided to build a tool, a newsletter to help people find the lowest fares. And then I made a system out of that tool, and I'm making it available for everybody.
So once upon a time, I got really pissed because Delta was going to charge me $1,400 to fly to Milan. So I spent some time, and I got really creative. And I found that I could fly to Milan for $280. But it was really hard to find that. And I thought, there are other people that would pay for this. So then I found some great technology folks, and I built a system that I now am building a business out of. And you too can travel. I want to go to Warsaw though. Can you get me a ticket to Warsaw? So you see how you can take, story's great, but I'm not particularly interested in your story, to be honest. You all look like really wonderful people, but I want to know what you're going to do for me. What's your story that impacts my story? Because, I get really pissed at those airfares, too. I sent my son to Kenya for 2 months, and it was not cheap. Didn't know you then, so. So tell a story. Tell a story that's about the person you're talking to. Tell a story that's going to get their heartbeat up, that's going to get them focused on you for more than 8 seconds. It's going to make them curious.